Hey guys, it's Sebastian from AskSebby, and today we are going to do a re-review of the Discover It card for 2019. One of the big reasons I wanted to kind of cover a few of these cards is because the last time I did a review for this was 2 years ago, and the landscape has changed quite a bit. The point of this video is to summarize all the changes and how the card currently stands based off the landscape. Doing a quick 60-second summary, the Discover It card is a 5% cashback card with rotating categories similar to the Freedom card. So if you're familiar with that card, it's pretty much exactly the same idea. One of the big perks with this card is that you have something called cashback match, meaning that in the first year, all of that cashback that you earn, you get it matched. So 5% back every quarter for that first year is effectively 10% back. If you're someone who wants to get into the specifics, you can also kind of double dip one of these quarters if you time it correctly. So let's say you get the card in February of 2019, you have the whole February, so Q1 of 2019, Q2, 3, 4 of 2019, but you also have about 1.5 months for Q1 of 2020 to get that $1,500 of spend for 5% back, or technically 10% back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or if this is a bit too confusing, don't worry too much about it right now. We do have a separate video. I think it's like a 5 or 6 minute video talking about that, so it might make sense to watch that afterwards. I'll link down to that below. Before diving into the details in terms of what I think about the card and how I manage it myself, let me know down below if you are still someone who has the card and also how you manage it. Maybe it's a sock drawer card, maybe it's something you actively use. Also, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. On the surface, this is an amazing card, and it was one of the best cards out there when I first started in this hobby. And the big reason is because it has really good cash back, and also it had really good protections in the past. Within the past 2 years, we have done update videos as they have removed these perks. So price protection, return protection, and extended warranty being the 3 big ones. This brings the Discover It card from an S tier card, so a card that was a no-brainer to have in your wallet just for that great service and extended warranty and all those other benefits, to a card that's probably in the B tier or C tier, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's still a solid card, but I think it only works for certain situations where it makes sense. And those situations tend to be where you're getting those 5% back quarters, so where you're getting that benefit, but where you don't need to rely on extended warranty. If it's a big purchase, I would recommend not using the Discover card just because you never really know what might happen. And I feel like for me at least, I've gotten a lot of value from these auxiliary benefits. A lot of people ignore them because they think that, well, it's too hard to use, or they're never going to use it, or whatever else. And if you're someone who stays even mildly on top of your stuff, or even if you just keep documentation, which isn't that hard because everything's email based now, you can redeem a lot of them and use them when something bad happens. A lot of these benefits really relates more to the end game and maybe the mid game though, and not really the early game. And I think that's still where the Discover It card is very strong. Discover is one of the issuers who's more willing to trust people who have thin files, who are new to credit, or who don't have credit at all. I still think it's one of the best first cards to get because it's a card that you can keep long term and they don't charge an annual fee. So at an absolute worst case, you sock drawer the card and you use it only for those 5% back categories. Capital One, Citi, as well as Bank of America are all good choices as well. Bank of America is a bit weird if you are someone where you have to open a secured account, because I believe they charge $39, and I've heard a few different mixed things where they are not willing to waive that fee long term. So oftentimes if you just call them after your period, so you get your deposit back and it's an unsecured card now, they want to keep charging you that $39. I've heard a few people who have gone into that branch and basically say that, hey, I'm going to cancel my accounts, I want to withdraw all of my money, and they end up calling the back office and then getting it waived long term. I'm guessing that the amount of money you have with Bank of America does play a role there. With Citi and Capital One, I think those are easier choices as well. It just really depends on you. There's not really a wrong play. Early game, the Discover card is still very strong. Mid game, a lot weaker. End game, not really as good. Kind of more of a niche card for that 5% back. If I was someone who just started off right now, would I still recommend the Discover It card? Yes, just because I think it's a very good card and it trains your brain to understand how the quarters work. Especially once you get into more advanced cards, you do need to have a basic understanding of how you might want to divvy up your spend. I think the Discover It card lets you know how categories work for merchant coding, just because a lot of people still think that travel is what happens when you go out of your state. So I've had some people tell me that, well, I went to Subway, the sandwich place, and I'm in a different city, so that should count as travel, and that's not really how the travel category works. I still have 2 Discover It cards, and they are firmly part of my foundation, but just not something I actively need to use, especially given that I'm not really getting the other benefits that I really like to get. So for example, in the past, I ended up buying a very expensive chair that I think costed $100 something for $30 something. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I ended up using the price match feature of Discover, and worst case, even if they didn't let me price match it, I would have just did return protection and still got it off my hands. Hopefully that was helpful, and let me know if you guys have any questions. My question for you guys is, are you someone who still has a Discover It card, and how do you kind of treat it yourself? Is it a sock drawer card for you? Is it something you actively use? Let me in the community know down below. And also, if you are someone who's letting people know, also let people know the stage you're in, because that's probably going to give a bit of insight as well. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, it really helps us out. And if you know anyone else who'd benefit from what we just talked about, feel free to share this video with them, because it's probably going to help them out. But otherwise, hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time.